You know, if we look at 50 years since the Coulter principle, and I was not an expert in hematology, but I remember people using microscopes and coning things, and if you think about the simplification of the process, the automation of the process that this invention gave to healthcare. And so today, the cost of doing the CBC is significantly lower than it was 50 years ago. It is widely available around the world, and so in terms of healthcare and advancing healthcare in our lives, this had a significant impact.
One of the projects Wallace worked on was to test the uniformity of solid particles in battleship paint. His plan was to run the paint through the aperture and measure the particles. However, when he returned to his basement, he discovered he left the top off the paint can. The liquid was now a solid. So instead of venturing out in the cold Chicago air, he searched for another particle to test the idea. So using a sample of his own blood, Wallace discovered that cells could be measured. Ultimately, these experiments led to the Coulter principle, which was applied to the Model A.
It's really revolutionized the way hematology and oncology is being practiced. You could not imagine bone marrow transplantation, serious cancer treatments being carried out without effective measurements of blood cells. And in order to make those treatments safe, you would basically sail an uncharted sea.
I don't think Wallace and my dad were surprised by the impact the Model A had on laboratories. They could see by the responses of the first few customers that they had built a better mousetrap and that people would be beating down the doors to get one. And that's exactly what happened.
I always say to our customers, we know our founders, we have a history of experimentation and innovation, and that drives our strategy of simplifying, automating, and innovating.
They both were just interested in the technology and ideas. Spent hours just talking with Wallace about what we might do, what we might be able to achieve. Joe used to come into my office in the Boston facility, sit down 7 o'clock, talk till 10:30.
They used to walk around the plant and say hello to everybody, watch what they were doing, ask questions, and make suggestions. They were always down to earth and friendly. They were genuinely interested in other people's lives, and they had great memories for the names of employees, their husbands, wives, and kids.
One day, Wallace appears, it was like 7 o'clock at night, and I was getting ready to leave, and he shows up in my office, and he wants to know why what was now 5C wasn't in production. And you know, I didn't know how to respond, except that, you know, I took orders from the management in diagnostics, and, you know, program managers have to have priority projects and all these other things. And so I was a little bit concerned, a little nervous about that. And I said, well, if you'd like, I can schedule some lots through the manufacturing group unofficially. And he said, that's what I like, because I don't like all this bureaucracy that this company has developed. And you know, here we are trying to formalize everything. He comes in and he wants this done, and I don't want to hear it. You know, we did it, and you know, today we have 5C. We snuck in 3 lots, and we did a send-off to customers, and the management at diagnostics didn't know anything about it. When the customers responded, they all wanted that product. So you can imagine how upset they got after that. And I always used Wallace as he ordered me to do it. I had no choice, and he told me to keep it quiet. And so, you know, it was pretty good. You know, that he could still, I think he really liked to be able to feel like the company was still small enough for him to behave that way and to do those things, and, you know, cut through the bureaucracy and get it done. And that was pretty good.
Just before we were to go into the conference room for this last round of talks, Joe looked over at Wallace and said, what's the matter? They put on their pants the same way you do. And I didn't realize I'd been set up, so I said, I just looked at Wallace and said, you know, what's wrong? He said, well, I didn't realize anybody else could put on their pants standing on their head. And everybody just broke up, and we walked out of the conference room, or walked into the conference room, and I think the other group never understood why we kept smiling every time we looked at each other, and they got so distracted. We came out pretty well.
So in going through all these books, it was just amazing the subject range of everything that was there. It was books on cooking and growing plants, mangoes, which I know is one of Wallace's favorite things, was mangoes, and history and novels and business and science and engineering and old catalogs, and it was just incredible. But the funniest thing, I think, was watching and opening some of these books and seeing some newspaper clippings that Wallace had cut out on how to make chili, and how to take care of his mango trees. And, you know, anything that he's seen, there was all kinds of little newspaper clippings inside of the books, you know. Wallace
always struck me as somebody who, in a masterly way, mismatched his pants with his jackets. And he couldn't care less, it seemed. And of course, he was always wearing a little fisherman's hat. And one of the things when I was working as a consultant for Coulter Corporation was that my first one-on-one dinner with Wallace was very interesting. He had me drive out and he gave me directions, and then all of a sudden he said, "Okay, pull over here, we're there." And we were at Denny's. Denny's was one of his favorite places, and he knew the menu by heart and said, it's Tuesday night, we're in luck, Dr. Howard. They have chicken soup on the menu, and I highly recommend it.
Joe went with me to visit some customers, and we started out really early in the morning. I picked them up at the hotel, I think it was at 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. And we went throughout to visit, must have been 7 or 8 customers. And by then, you know, he was great because he loved being in front of the customers, and customers loved him, and he was just so gracious. But it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and he says to me, "You know, we haven't had lunch." And I said, "My goodness, you're right." And the only place that was open was a Pizza Hut, and it was a buffet. And the only thing that was left was a few slices of pizza, because in Puerto Rico the restaurants close after about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and open again for dinner. So here's the president of the company. We'd been out seeing customers, and the only place I could take him to was Pizza Hut. He was very gracious and very nice. That evening we had dinner with the bankers who had financed the construction of the building, and he says, "You know, Julio's great. He's got a great relationship with the customers, and they're doing a great job, you know, with sales, and it's great. The only thing I would ask is that the next time he takes me to lunch, he spends more than $1.50 for it." And I thought that was great. It was really a great sense of humor, and he was great in front of the customers. It was a real pleasure spending the day with him that way. So that was a pretty nice story, and he, you know, of course, it fed the reputation that everybody had of me, that I was so cheap in this company.
He gave me a copy of Schaefer's Electrophotography. Well, it's 980 pages of very dense technical material. And I flipped it open, and inside the front cover he had written to Don Graham, a good reference to back up interest in ideas and joy, Joe Coulter. And in the next few minutes it developed that not only had he read most of it, he expected me to read it, and any time in the next 24 hours was fine. He wanted to talk about it. So, yes, that led to 2 patents that have since issued, and I've done that particularly because Joe's last request was that work not be allowed to die.
It's really been a privilege for me because I've had the experience of seeing so many of the people that started here go on and get their college degrees, and some of them go on and get their masters, and then some even to get their doctorates, and being a part of that and watching that and seeing how, you know, I think that the Coulters really had a feel for people and for developing their people. And I think that's probably why you see that there's still so many of us around today.
I think all the opportunities that I've had to learn, I've had 6 or 7 different functions in this company, and you know, they've been most generous and patient with me, and I believe that I owe my success and my professional development to the opportunities that were given to me in good faith. And I know that I've had great mentors in this company, and it's been a wonderful journey. And you know, for my family and myself, it's been our livelihood. It's really helped us to educate our children, and we've had a good life. It's a great company, and I think, and it continues. I think the legacy is here, and it's fantastic.
I worked with Wallace for nearly 20 years. I got to work with Joe the last 7 years or so of his life on a project that he was particularly interested in. They both came from, I think, what seems now a much simpler time, but I think they brought things to us that we all appreciate. And for me, whatever I might have given to the organization and to what they were trying to do is a small thing compared to what they gave me.
It's given me an opportunity to not only raise my family and have all their needs met, but I think that the Coulters have given so many other people the opportunity. You know, they say science serving humanity. Well, they not only served humanity, you know, in the medical field, but by providing all these opportunities for the people that work for them to raise their families. It just kind of spread out into the community. So I think they had a real vision of what they were doing. And I think that what most impressed me about them was their humility and their simplicity. And I can still see Wallace with his little fishing hat coming down, and that time when he had those red boxers on, you know, at that meeting. Yeah, I do want to thank them, giving me a good life and my family.
I'm sure both of them are very proud of the accomplishments that they have made and the company has achieved over the years, and of the opportunities that there are for the future.
Intensity in customer intimacy is what I saw when I saw the culture at Coulter. Really close to the customer and the answer, and understanding what that was all about and helping the customer get their answer. So customer service was one of the underlying competencies in the Coulter culture. And of course that brings it back to everything else, because what happens at the customer level comes back into the development organizations, the marketing organizations, the applications organizations. So the people, I say, are really close to making sure that their customers are happy.
I think that the Coulter part of Beckman Coulter is still an enormously strong element. I always call it the jewel in the crown of the corporation, and I hope that in the future we will prove that it is not only a strong element, it is also a vibrant element that is capable of again reinventing hematology as a discipline, and will bring forward new and exciting technology for medical uses and medical needs that are still unmet.